Imagine a young America, a nation still finding its footing after the revolution. Its economy was a wild, untamed frontier, much like its vast lands. State banks printed their own money, leading to a confusing patchwork of currencies, rampant inflation, and financial instability. Trade suffered, and the promise of national prosperity seemed perpetually out of reach without a unifying financial force. This chaos laid the groundwork for a radical idea, a national bank. Initially, the first Bank of the United States was established in 1791, largely due to Alexander Hamilton's vision. It brought order, stabilizing the currency and managing government debt. But its charter expired in 1811, amid fierce debate over its constitutionality and power. Without it, the financial chaos returned, exacerbated by the War of 1812, proving that a strong central financial institution was perhaps not just a luxury, but a necessity. So in 1816, the second Bank of the United States was chartered. It was colossal. With branches across the nation, it was essentially America's first de facto central bank. Its mandate? To regulate the money supply, provide credit, and be the fiscal agent for the U.S. government. It was designed to bring order to the financial Wild West, ensuring stable currency and fostering economic growth, setting a path for national prosperity. At the helm was Nicholas Biddle, a brilliant but arrogant Philadelphia financier. Biddle saw the bank not just as a fiscal agent, but as an independent force for national economic good. He wielded immense power, able to expand or contract credit, influence state banks, and effectively dictate the nation's financial health. Under his leadership, the bank grew into a sophisticated and powerful institution, shaping the economic destiny of the entire young republic. But in the rising political tide of the 1820s, a new kind of leader emerged, Andrew Jackson. A military hero and a champion of the common man, Jackson harbored a deep distrust of elite institutions, paper money, and centralized power. To him, the Second Bank of the United States was a monstrous, undemocratic entity controlled by a privileged few and operating against the interests of the ordinary American farmer and laborer.
Jackson's populist vision clashed head-on with Biddle's powerful financial empire. The bank, Jackson argued, was a corrupt monopoly, enriching foreign investors and wealthy northern merchants at the expense of the working class and states' rights. He saw it as a threat to Republican virtue, placing economic power beyond the reach of the people and their elected representatives. This deep-seated ideological conflict would soon ignite an all-out war. The battle officially commenced when the bank's charter came up for renewal in 1832, 4 years before it was due to expire. Biddle, with congressional allies Henry Clay and Daniel Webster, pushed for early recharter, hoping to force Jackson's hand before the upcoming presidential election. They believed Jackson wouldn't dare veto such a popular and economically vital institution in an election year, a grave miscalculation of Jackson's resolve. But Jackson was no ordinary politician. He saw the recharter bill as a direct challenge, an affront to his principles. With unwavering conviction, he issued a fiery veto message, declaring the bank unconstitutional, dangerous to liberty, and detrimental to the rights of states. This bold act, delivered directly to the people, galvanized his supporters and solidified his image as a defender of the common man against entrenched power. Jackson's veto sent shockwaves through the nation. It wasn't just a legal document, it was a powerful political manifesto that redefined the presidency. He wasn't just rejecting a bill, he was rejecting a vision of American finance controlled by elites. This marked a profound shift, signaling that the executive branch would now actively champion the interests of the many against powerful, privileged institutions, even at significant economic risk. Despite winning re-election in 1832, Jackson was not finished. He was determined to kill the bank, not just delay its demise. His next move was audacious. He ordered the removal of all federal deposits from the Second Bank of the United States. This was a direct attack, stripping the bank of its primary revenue source and undermining its ability to control the nation's currency. He aimed to starve the monster.
Secretary of the Treasury Louis McLean and William J. Duane both refused Jackson's order, believing it reckless and economically destabilizing. Jackson, in turn, fired them both, demonstrating his iron will. He then appointed Roger B. Taney, a loyal ally, who willingly carried out the controversial directive. This unprecedented use of executive power highlighted Jackson's commitment to dismantling the bank, regardless of opposition or potential consequences. With the federal funds withdrawn, they had to go somewhere. Jackson directed these massive deposits into various state-chartered banks across the country. These institutions quickly became known as pet banks, chosen largely for their political allegiance rather than their financial prudence. This created a fractured and uncontrolled banking system, removing any central authority overseeing the nation's money supply and setting the stage for future turmoil. Biddle, enraged by Jackson's actions, retaliated. He abruptly contracted credit, calling in loans and refusing new ones, hoping to create a financial panic that would force Jackson to restore the deposits. He believed the resulting public outcry would turn the nation against Jackson. This power struggle plunged the economy into a brief but sharp downturn, demonstrating Biddle's power and his willingness to use it for political ends. The economy reeled, businesses failed, unemployment rose, and a wave of bankruptcy swept across the nation. Critics dubbed it Biddle's panic. While short-lived, it temporarily validated Jackson's fears about the bank's immense power and its ability to manipulate the economy for political leverage. However, the public largely sided with Jackson, seeing Biddle's actions as a desperate attempt by a privileged elite to retain control. Despite Biddle's efforts, Jackson stood firm. The public backlash against Biddle, coupled with Jackson's unwavering popularity, ensured the bank's fate. Its federal charter expired in 1836, and it ceased to function as a national institution. Biddle attempted to keep it alive as a Pennsylvania state bank, but its power was broken, and it ultimately failed just 5 years later, a poignant end to a once mighty financial leviathan.
The immediate aftermath of the bank's demise saw an explosion of state banks. Without a central regulator, these pet banks and thousands of others began issuing paper money at an unprecedented rate, often without sufficient gold or silver reserves. This unchecked growth in the money supply fueled an era of wild speculation, particularly in land and internal improvements like canals and railroads, creating an artificial boom built on shaky foundations. The easy credit and rampant speculation created an economic bubble. Land prices soared to unsustainable levels, driven by the belief that westward expansion and new infrastructure would generate endless wealth. Everyone, from seasoned investors to ambitious pioneers, wanted a piece of the action. But this prosperity was illusory, fueled by paper money that had dubious backing, a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. Sensing the overheating economy and still distrustful at paper money, Jackson issued his specie circular in 1836. This executive order mandated that all public lands had to be purchased with hard currency, gold or silver, rather than easily printed banknotes. The move was intended to curb speculation and protect the federal treasury, but it had a drastic, unintended side effect. It abruptly drained specie from Eastern banks. As gold and silver flowed westward to pay for land, Eastern banks, which had based their notes on these very reserves, found themselves in a precarious position. The system was further destabilized by an influx of silver from Mexico and China and a distribution of federal surplus funds to the states, which further complicated the monetary landscape. These factors converged to create a perfect storm, setting the stage for a dramatic collapse. In May of 1837, the storm broke. Banks in New York City, overwhelmed by demands for specie and unable to honor their paper notes, suspended specie payments. This act of default quickly spread across the nation, triggering the Panic of 1837. The economic bubble burst with catastrophic force, bringing the nation's fragile prosperity crashing down, a direct consequence of the dismantled central bank.
The Panic of 1837 became one of the worst economic depressions in American history. Thousands of businesses failed, factories closed, and unemployment skyrocketed. Banks collapsed, wiping out savings, and land values plummeted. It was a brutal period of hardship for millions of Americans, lasting for years and highlighting the profound consequences of an unregulated financial system and the absence of a stabilizing central authority. Martin Van Buren, Jackson's successor, inherited the economic disaster. He attempted to mitigate the crisis by establishing an independent treasury system, aiming to separate government funds from private banks entirely. While this helped to some extent, the nation would grapple with economic instability for decades, punctuated by further panics, illustrating the deep, lasting scar left by Jackson's bank war on America's financial architecture. The United States would not have another true central bank until the Federal Reserve was established in 1913, more than 70 years later. The bank war left a profound legacy, deeply shaping American attitudes towards banking, federal power, and the role of government in the economy. It fostered a deep-seated suspicion of concentrated financial power that continues to echo in political debates even today. Jackson's victory in the bank war was a triumph for populist democracy, but it came at a significant cost: decades of financial instability for the young nation. It demonstrates the precarious balance between democratic ideals and the practical necessities of a stable economic system. The story of the bank war is a stark reminder that even well-intentioned political battles can have far-reaching and sometimes disastrous economic consequences. Ultimately, the war on the Bank of the United States teaches us a timeless lesson. Financial institutions, for all their complexities, are fundamentally linked to the political will of a nation. When those forces collide, even the most powerful economic structures can crumble, unleashing waves of prosperity or panic that redefine a country's future. The choices made by leaders, then as now, resonate through generations.